Welcome to a place where hearts unwind, infinite threads that gently bind, love and compassion in every line. Together we rise through space and time.
Hey, welcome back to Infinite Threads. I'm your host, Bob. There's a kind of strength that doesn't get recognized very often. It doesn't draw attention, and it doesn't announce itself, and it doesn't look impressive from the outside. In fact, most people would never even notice it because it doesn't show up in the big moments. It shows up in the quiet ones. In the way someone keeps going when things are heavy. In the way they still speak kindly when they're carrying something no one else can see. In the way they choose not to harden, even when they've been given every reason to. There are people all around us living like that. And maybe you're one of them. You wake up and there's already something on your mind. Something unresolved, something that hasn't been easy to carry. And still, you move forward. Not because everything feels okay, but because stopping isn't an option. Because there are people who depend on you, or moments that need you, or simply because something inside you says, keep going. And so you do. Step by step, conversation by conversation, and moment by moment. And on the outside, it might not look like anything remarkable. You might even feel like you're just getting through. But there's something more happening than that. You're choosing again and again not to let what you're carrying turn you into someone that you're not. You're choosing to stay open, even when it would be easier to close. You're choosing to remain kind, even when kindness hasn't always been returned. You're choosing to keep showing up, even when part of you feels tired. And guys, that's not small, and that's not ordinary. That's a kind of resilience that runs deep, and it doesn't need to be loud to be real. There's a quiet courage in staying soft in a world that often rewards hardness. A quiet courage in continuing to care, in continuing to listen, in continuing to respond with something other than defensiveness or distance. It doesn't mean you don't feel the weight, and it doesn't mean things don't get to you. It just means they don't get to define you. There's a difference, and that difference matters because over time, something begins to form inside a person who lives this way. Not a shield, but a steadiness. Not a wall, but a foundation. Something that says, I can carry this and still be who I choose to be. And guys, that's powerful. Not because it changes everything overnight, but because it changes how you move through everything else. There are days when it feels like way too much. Days when the weight presses a little harder, and days when it would be easier to withdraw, to stop engaging, to pull back from the world just enough to protect yourself. And sometimes that's needed. Rest is not a weakness. Stepping back is not a failure. But even in those moments, that same quiet strength is still there. Not gone, just waiting. waiting for you to come back to yourself, waiting for you to take the next step when you're ready, waiting for you to remember that what you've been carrying has not taken away who you are. There's something deeply human about that, something honest, something real. And we don't talk about it enough, not at all. We celebrate the big wins, the visible victories, the moments that stand out. But there's a whole other layer of life happening underneath that. A layer where people are holding things together quietly, where they're choosing not to pass on the pain that they've received, where they're deciding in small and steady ways to remain connected to something better. And that deserves to be seen, even if it's only seen by you. So if today feels like one of those days, if you're carrying something that no one else fully understands, if you're still showing up, still engaging, still choosing to be kind in ways that aren't always easy, take a moment now and recognize that. It deserves that. Recognize it not as something that you have to prove, but as something that's already true. You're still here. You're still standing. And somewhere in the middle of everything you're carrying, there's still a part of you that knows how to smile. Not because everything is perfect, but because you haven't let the hard parts take that away from you. And sometimes that's the strongest thing that you can do. I love you all very, very, very much. And you know what I need you to do. Go out and pass that on, okay? Later, Gators. Bye-bye.